Sorry about that. Wasn't recorded. Sorry. One other thing that specifically we want to mention today is artificial intelligence. So seeing it as a threat initially is what we got as a lot of feedback from universities when we were involved in sessions. But increasingly, particularly from an audience like this today, it's actually an opportunity to innovate potentially. So you can go beyond knowledge recall. You can surface a learning process. You can focus on individual learner experience and really focus on assessment for learning, not just assessment of learning. Dialogue is something that also really impacts on the experience of students if you can have dialogue around content that's delivered. And actually an opportunity for us to be a bit more creative with our assessment methodology. Maybe even get universities to relax regulations. That's crossing fingers on that one, but around a different, more creative approach to assessment methods. And to be more authentic, so that what you design is actually very much aligned with what the students are going to go on to do in their career beyond, especially on a vocational course. So what we think is a variety of methods and support for artificial intelligence of staff. That's something that we think is a great approach. We have actually launched a paper. So those of you who want to visit us at the stand downstairs, we've got a perspective paper on artificial intelligence that we've launched today, giving some really good insights into it. We've got I think it's 1,500 students, over 200 staff have been surveyed and given us some responses to that. And we've got our own perspective on that because we come from the higher education sector, a lot of people in PebblePad. So we've got a unique perspective on it. Just to very briefly talk about the structure of PebblePad, we've actually got a diagram here that gives an overview of the different elements of PebblePad for those of you who don't know what it is. So we've actually got different elements of it. We've got what we call Pebble Plus, which is the learning space that exists within the platform. So that's where you would design content. It's where, as an individual, you would go and consume the content as well and pick up a copy of it, templates and workbooks and structures that you can create within the system and share with learners. You've also got a assessment space called Atlas, which sits alongside it. And that's very much the place where you go to offer feedback, and to distribute resources to members, to share things like feedback templates and marking schemes and rubrics. And that's where the majority of the activity happens from the assessment staff side. And we've also got an app that works alongside the platform because we realize that a lot of the activities required around education need to happen anywhere, anytime, and potentially offline. Increasingly, data connections are available, but not always, particularly in clinical environments. There's one of our customers who works in radiology units. Literally no signals can get in and they can still use Pebble Pocket in that environment to record activities. And of course, the final bit there, we've got integration with external platforms, VLEs, all the main players in the system that allow alignment with content that's created. And it's not a competition for VLEs, it sits alongside VLEs and very much fills that personal reflective space alongside a VLE. So in terms of reframing PebblePad, these are the areas that we think PebblePad, maybe not unique selling points, maybe some other platforms do some of these things, but as a whole, we think we're in a very good position to meet the challenges of the current context in HE. It is a learner-centered platform. We do support reflection from day one. That's what we were set up to do. It is a very flexible system, adaptable to any discipline, pretty much any context. You can be very creative and adaptable in it. You can get externals involved from outside the university infrastructure. We know that a lot of assessment happens through external colleagues, particularly in vocational courses, healthcare courses, for example. So you can bring them into the system in multiple ways and get them to interact. Like we said, anywhere, anytime. We've really improved the accessibility of the platform. I've heard a couple of sessions already talk about that today. Not just the standard frameworks of accessibility that are out there that we have to comply with, but also just the intuitive design, the user experience in the system. And that side is equally important on accessibility. We've got structured frameworks that exist in the platform that you can design, which guide the students through their learning journey, but you can also be very creative alongside that. You can have multiple roles in the platform. So you as a member of staff, you could be in a CPD course in your university and be a student in one space, but also be an assessor in another space. And that's the same platform with different roles. It covers non-standard pathways. So with my background in medicine, it was a non-modular course, year-based, competency-based, and PebblePad allowed that structure to be reflected in a way that the university systems didn't allow. So it fits in those gaps between the standard university structures. And I think what's best would be a balanced approach sometimes between the structured frameworks and creative approaches from a student's perspective. You can have both that sit alongside each other. So this slide basically covers the fact that we've got a lot of our customers, and we've experienced this more and more over the years, they actually use PebblePad much more in the highly structured side of the system. So you define the structures and templates that you guide students through. But alongside that, you can have the students creating their own portfolios, their own content, and they can sit alongside each other in a very seamless way, which is a really nice approach that PebblePad supports. This used to be how we used to speak about PebblePad, a linear journey through. It could be undergraduate, postgraduate, CPD, doesn't have to be the standard undergraduate pathway. So very much a journey, a linear journey from start to end. But actually what we've started to do is talk about PebblePad around themes that we very much see as answering some of those challenges that we outlined at the beginning there. Authentic assessment and feedback, flexible learning design, belonging, well-being and success, employable and future ready, and professional identity and capability. So they're the themes that we're talking about. And I know we want to leave time for questions, but if I just take you through this slide, don't worry, it's quite busy because there's lots going on in it. We've got some handouts downstairs if anyone's interested to see this in more depth. But effectively, this shows you how the different themes map across a curriculum structure. So this could be a 5-year structure on a vocational course like medicine. This could be an undergraduate curriculum. But as you can see there, pre-enrollments, so you can use PebblePad potentially pre-arrival to welcome students in. We've got customers that use the system for that already, all the way through to the other end, which is taking their content with them. We allow alumni accounts, so you can take all your content with you as a student, start to use that in your future career. We've got professional accreditation that uses the platform, teacher training, nurse education, and so on. And that provides a longitudinal approach to using the system as well. So we've got many examples of all. These aren't theoretical. These are real examples of PebblePad use across many different themes, many different areas within the system. Just a couple of examples there. Personal academic tutoring is something that University of Leeds are currently engaged, rolling it out at large scale in a consistent, controlled approach using PebblePad. We've got Edge Hill University that use in the employability theme, PebblePad to map graduate attributes across the entire curriculum. And that allows them to see what they've added to by the end of the course. But then multiple different examples there that if any of you want more detail about any of those, please come and see us at the stand downstairs and we can share more details with you and where our case studies are. So I'll just skip past this year 1 focus and year 3 focus. So what we feel, before I just end with the couple of bits that we've got to tell you about, we feel that PebblePad is really well placed to cope with the current challenges of higher education. And again, it comes back to those principles that I started with from my personal point of view. Does it enhance the situation? Does it make things better? Does it allow you to do something that you couldn't do without the technology? And it allows me to carry on helping people and solving problems, which is what I enjoy day to day in this role. So a couple of final points. We've got a competition. Those of you who know what a Remarkable tablet is, it's like a digital notepad, really quite a funky piece of kit. We've got it's not a cryptic crossword for those of you who are worried by this. It really is quite simple. You complete it, pass it back to us, and we'll enter you for the prize draw. I think, Claire, we're going to do that at the end of the conference, the prize draw. So we'll announce who's won it there. And then a final point here, we've got our conference in Edinburgh next year. Like I said, we're 20 years old. We've got what we call a Pebble Bash in Edinburgh in June. There's a call out for papers at the minute. It'd be great to see some of you there. We do have a lot of dancing, don't we, Claire? A lot of cake, a lot of food. And it'd be great for you to join us. Okay, that's me. Thanks very much for listening. I think we're on to questions.
Can you hear me, guys? Yeah. One quick technical question.
Yes.
Right? A lot of universities use Mahara, which doesn't really export to anything. So what can PebblePad actually export to?
There's a range of export options, but actually increasingly, and on our roadmap, this is something that's going to be and has been prioritized and will be prioritized. It's actually integrations with other systems that people are interested in as well. So not only can you have access to the content beyond your time as a student, so if you leave a university, I don't know what people's cut-off periods are in universities, but it's normally 30 days, 60 days after you graduate, you don't have access to the IT system normally. So you can create a personal account in PebblePad and take that with you and link it to a private email address. So you can continue accessing it there. You can export it as a range of different file formats, but increasingly you can then integrate with other systems where you can access your content through that as well. So range of options there.
Okay, thanks. Questions? All right, I'll come straight to you because the audience in the digital realm cannot hear you.
Great, thanks so much for your presentation. I was just curious, you were pointing out how much our physical technology has changed in 30 years. And if you've been around in this company for 20 years, there must surely be some pretty mammoth technology changes behind the scenes as various different tech stacks come in and out of flavor, and pedagogical thinking must have changed over that time. And I'm just wondering if you could give us some insight into what it's like being in the education technology space when the sands are shifting for you as much as they perhaps are for us on the inside. And what's that process like, and how do you see your role in terms of, say, interpreting educational literature and using that to drive the product designs that you then use to help people enable teaching when that is a moving target too?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the starting point for us with that is that we come from a higher education background ourselves. Everyone in my team, we're either learning technologists or academic staff like myself. So we've been on the other side of it. We know how things change. We know how you have to adapt to it. I think what's interesting about PebblePad is at its heart 20 years ago, it was created to fill a gap in the market then, which was the production of a personal reflective space. And early on, that's pretty much all it did. Over time, as other things may have filled that space or education has veered away from that at times, we've had to add extra elements to the platform to cope with it. And I think it's fair to say that as a overall platform now, there aren't many educational pathways that PebblePad can't fully support or support to a large extent within it. It's very flexible. It's very much context-based, your use of it. So I think we do a good job of providing enough flexibility and adaptability in the platform to cope with the ever-shifting changes of education. But what's also very interesting is until recently, that use of the structured approach very much fitted the way education was going. Large-scale competency-based assessments that had to be delivered in multiple environments, and then the reporting analytics to back that up. And that's absolutely something that we're still advancing and still enhancing in the system. But actually, I think with the birth of the AI situation, if you like, it's now coming back more towards that learner-centered, creative, experiential approach to assessment, because that's harder to fake, to put it simply. And we have lots of customer interactions which are telling us that they're redesigning their assessment now to cope with that reality. And I think PebblePad that was at its heart always, which we've never lost. So it is tricky. I am biased, but I would say PebblePad is better placed than a lot of technology to cope with those changes. I hope that gives a bit of an answer. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. Any further questions or comments? It's almost 30 degrees. You're all dying, right? Okay. Well, do you have any final comments before we go?
Like I say, just we're downstairs near the doors. So if you want to get a breeze passing by you, we're in a good space. We've got that drawer on. So come and talk to myself and Claire here about anything to do with PebblePad if you want a bit more detail. Obviously, we only had a little bit of time today. Didn't have a huge amount of time to go into detail, particularly if you've got a context in mind. So a subject-specific question, how you might want to use something like PebblePad. If you come with those questions, that's a really good starting point to show you how PebblePad could be used in your scenario. So thanks very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Apologies that I didn't have the microphone. That was totally my fault. You did tell me, I didn't do it, but everyone here heard it.
Thank you very much, Paul. Enjoy Costa del Warwick, right? It's 30 degrees. You should take advantage of it. I was in Malaga last week, so we won't get this for the rest of the year. Thank you very much, Paul.
Okay, thanks everyone.